ESPN Radio. This is the Thundering Herd Podcast.
There's something that's happened. I'm not really sure why. Maybe it's the emergence of, blogs and stuff. But the media has really become, and I know I'm part of the media, but that doesn't mean I like the media or I trust the media, because I don't. It's weird. I'm a part of a club that I don't like, I'm part of a group sometimes I don't respect, It's weird. But I guess I'm media too, so. But the media has become increasingly gotcha media. A school teacher has 30 unbelievable years, writes one thing on a chalkboard that is politically not perfect, and let's fire her. Let's condemn her entire career. That's what the media has become. Gotcha. Far left, far right, gotcha. You're fired. Here's a picture. I hate it. People's entire careers go down the drain because of one bad tweet, one bad moment, one bad sentence. We're not all fallible. We're not all human. And I don't think people are like that. I think the media is like that. But I think what has happened, it's created a more corrosive environment, and people are manipulated by the media to some degree. And now people are becoming more like that. I don't think most of you are like that. I don't think you wake up in the morning like that. You didn't used to. But the media has done that. So now you read the media, you consume it, and you've become like that. This morning, I get up, and the first thing I do when I get to work is I check my emails, and I want to see what people want to talk about. And you know what everybody said today? You got to kill James Harden. Oh, you got to destroy him. How could you pass that shot up? You got to light James Harden up. I'm not going to do that. James Harden was unbelievable. That's one of the greatest playoff games I've ever seen by a human. I'm counting Jordan and LeBron. James Harden was unbelievable. They're not in this series. They're not in that game without James Harden. Yes, I didn't love him passing to Dwight Howard at the end either. But he was double-teamed by the number one ranked defense in the league. The right basketball play was to pass it to the open guy. Just happened to be Dwight Howard, and he didn't know it when he let go of the ball. By the time he got it back, it got kicked around. No time for a timeout. James Harden was not only unbelievable, he was much more efficient than Michael Jordan generally was. 13 of 21, 3 of 6 on threes, 9 of 10 on free throws, 9 assists, a block, 3 steals, 10 rebounds. Dude, that's a good night for LeBron. That's a great night for LeBron. I'm not going to bang on James Harden. They're not. First of all, Houston was down 17 in the second quarter. He almost single-handedly pulled them back. And Golden State's the team in this league. They get you down, they bury you. They humiliate you. Then they had him down. 8 with $1:30 to go. James Harden scored 6, assisted on another, got him right back in it. I'm not going to beat him with an umbrella. I'm not going to take a club to him because his last-second play in crisis, great defense, double team, he passed to Dwight Howard. Dwight Howard, by the way, looked like a statue. How about put the ball on the floor, hit a free throw jumper, you goof? But for years I defended LeBron, who'd go 37, 12, and 12, and people would say, oh, he didn't take the last shot. By the way, Jordan missed 26 last shots. It doesn't frame his legacy at all. Michael Jordan was willing to take the shots, and for the record, Michael often passed up the last shot to an open Kerr Paxson. But it's amazing. This is what's happened to us. We're all at fault, and I'm not going to be part of it. I've never had more respect for James Harden than this morning. I mean, that was jaw-droppingly unbelievable. He was the best player on the floor last night, and that includes Steph Curry. He was dominant. Rebound, glass. Well, he's not a great defensive player. Everything else. So you got to shoot that. No, you don't. No, you don't. That's a dumb guy argument. The dumb guy who's never achieved anything is now an expert in crisis production. You've got it. You don't have to do anything. You do the right basketball play. The right basketball play is I'm getting doubled by the best defensive team in the NBA. There's a wide open guy at the top of the key. And by the way, there's another thing altogether that everybody's looking for criticism. It's very easy this morning to clobber Kevin McHale. Okay, because Kevin McHale didn't call a timeout on that last play. But I wouldn't have called a timeout either because I have a theory and a belief on calling timeouts in the last play. Because you can have any answer you want in life in any business. Just give me your thoughts behind it. That's why Bill Belichick's better than other coaches. Bill's got a theory, right or wrong, on everything. Every smart person I've ever really met has theories on methodologies on why things work. My theory on the call a timeout or not late has always been this. If you have a great scoring ball handler or a creator, you're very strong at point, don't call a timeout. He is now in his natural space. Both teams are helter-skelter, but at least I have the ball, and the guy I want with it has the ball. I call a timeout, you could deny him the ball out of bounds, and I can't get it to him. The ball was in the right guy's hands, James Harden, who by a long stretch gets fouled into the free throw line more than any player in this league. And in helter-skelter, everybody's helter-skelter, the right guy had the ball, the right guy had momentum, he's the best in the league at getting fouled, and he's a great free throw shooter. That's my theory. Now, there are times I would call a timeout. I don't have a magician at guard. I don't have a great Tony Parker in his prime. I don't have Chris Paul. But what I have is really good bigs. Memphis, I'd call a timeout. Because I've got Zach Randolph and Marc Gasol, terrific free throw shooters for bigs, terrific field goal percentage shooters. Mike Conley's not a magician. Good, but he's not as talented as a John Wall, a Steph Curry, a James Harden, a Damian Lillard. And so I have my theory on that. My theory is if you're led by bigs, for instance, if I had the Boston Celtics with McHale and Parrish and Bird, timeout, I'll figure out a way to get the ball. But if I got Magic Johnson, let the play develop. Magic is magic. He'll make something happen in a helter-skelter setting, and I don't want you to deny Magic the ball out of bounds if I call a timeout. Kevin McHale afterwards explained it, and I thought authoritatively Kevin McHale wrapped it up after the game, and I buy it completely.
Hey, look, we'll take our best player coming downhill. He's a great downhill player. And that thing, they just kind of pinched him, had a little bit of a bobble. I was trying to then the ball got loose, and I was trying to get timeout late at that time. We should have, if we had timeout, could have probably called it with about 2.5. But look, when I glanced up and I saw two guys behind the play, there's just no way I was going to call a timeout at that point. And I don't know who fell down, but I figured if nothing else, we had a 4-on-3.
You had numbers, the hottest player on the floor. He'd been unstoppable. He always gets fouled. It's helter-skelter. I'm not calling timeout with that. By the way, that's what practice is for. That's why you don't think you practice those moments? By the way, do you have to call a timeout to babysit Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, Drew Brees? That's what you practice all week for. Helter-skelter, 2 minute, no timeout left. Let's go. The great ones, the leaders, the quarterbacks, the point guards, don't get in their way. That's why you pay them $22 million a year. For those moments, not the second quarter. And I'll tell you this, where Colin was, I'm right officially, Houston could easily be up 2-0 in this series. These games have been magnificent. And Houston's got 2 starters out. Houston has played great, and Harden last night was jaw-dropping. All sorts of stuff today. I just found out something. Stanzik, by the way, came up with an amazing thought today. I don't even know what to do with it. Let's hear it for Dan Stanzik. Open that mic up, John. Let's hear it for Dan Stanzik. Applause.
Hot take.
Hot take. You came up with something amazing today, and it was Harden-like. It was like, wow, we're watching magic here.
Want more of the Herd? The Thundering Herd Podcast.
People are like, Colin, you say you hate Houston all year and now you like them. I can hate a restaurant but have a good meal. I don't like Houston's roster to win titles because I don't like their 2 stars. I don't think they play well together necessarily. Portland Trailblazers, when I covered them, Indiana Pacers a couple years ago. It's not a championship team to me, Houston, but they got the 2 seed. I mean, they got real players. And Harden last night was spectacular, but I wouldn't build my franchise around him. I mean, he's not a guy I'd build my franchise around. There's other guys in the league. Chris Paul, I'd build it. Steph Curry, I wouldn't James Harden. That's my opinion. It's not yours. But I don't know that it's that difficult to figure out what I'm saying. I don't have to love somebody to love a piece of his art. I can think an artist is average, but there's one piece I like. You ever go to an art gallery and you don't really like, by and large, the guy's work, the woman's work, but they have one piece you really like? James Harden can score. And last night, he was unbelievable. I'm not going to rip him for that last call, that last play. I mean, they're not even in that game without James Harden. As I often said with LeBron James, I can't crucify LeBron James because he doesn't take a final shot when he's got 42 points and 16 assists with a bunch of B players, and he's the only healthy guy playing 45 minutes. I'm not going to build my franchise around James Harden. I don't think he plays on both ends. He was great last night, and I'll defend him forever on that last moment, which, by the way, I would not call a timeout as a coach either if I had the hottest guy on the floor with the ball in my hands and numbers. Just let him play. Stanzik, this morning in our herd meeting, came up with something that I thought was rather remarkable. Now, first of all, that's rare. Second of all, I thought it's a Friday, and I'm done talking about Deflategate. I'm done with that thing, period. So I thought we got space to fill, and I want to give you some credit. So here we go. Stanzik has first, before you get specific, let's talk about your basic theory, the sandwich theory.
All right, yeah, it's not my theory. It's a management theory. I don't even think it's that effective. But when a manager wants to give someone criticism, they normally sandwich the criticism by going compliment, criticism, compliment.
Now, John,
so you sandwich that with...
John, that's called something, right? That's called, what's that called?
Yeah, build, break, build.
Build, break.
That's what the manager's called.
So you pat him on the butt, then say you stink, and then you say, hey, but I love you.
Correct.
It works the same way with wives. Like if you went up to somebody and basically said, my wife is sweet, she is impatient, but she's smart, you love her. If you said she's mean, she's a great mom, but she's got a dead tooth too, you're getting divorced. That's the way it works. If you ever end a conversation about a guy's wife and he says, and she's got a dead tooth, it's all over. So anyway, now let's get back to the specific thing you were talking about with the player.
Right. So Jahlil Okafor, the center from Duke, they won the title. He's
the draft's in 1 month.
going to be the number 1 or number 2 pick, most likely.
Right.
We had Coach K on this show a few weeks ago, and he did the reverse sandwich theory. He went negative, positive, negative.
Which generally means...
I don't think he likes him.
It's very interesting. So generally speaking, if you do like somebody, even subliminally, you'll do like, criticism like. You like somebody. If you go criticism, you feel kind of guilty about it. You give them a like, but you go back to criticism, you may not truly like them. Here is Coach K on Okafor.
I think he's so much a developing player. He's still really young, and obviously he's got talents that you can't teach. And those are hands, feet, and really an unbelievable kid. He will continue to have to develop an even greater work ethic because he's going to be playing against men and a little bit more of being precise.
Oh, boy. Criticism. He does have natural talents. Criticism. Now, remember, this is the number 2 pick. But is subliminally Coach K saying needs to grow up. He's got great talents. Work ethic, precision, needs work. Stanzik? And we asked Laker GM Mitch Kupchak yesterday, a lot of people think you'll go point guard. Are you going to take a big? Is your gut saying big or point?
We haven't worked anybody out. We haven't interviewed anybody. Clearly, at the top of the draft, at this time, there's 2 bigs, and we have the 2nd pick.
And he stopped talking. He told you they're going to take a big. So, I thought Stanzik. Again, let's have another round of applause for Dan Stanzik. Excellent work today, Stanzik.
You love my hot takes. But they pay me the big bucks, Colin.
Can I point something out about it, though?
Certainly.
That interview was April 7th, so it did take Dan about 2 months to come up with that hot take.
It's a little less of a hot take. It's a simmering take. It's not hot.
I put it back in the microwave. I reheated the take.
Okay.
Sandwich got cold.
All right. I thought it was kind of this morning. It's like, if you start thinking about what you say about one of your bosses, if somebody comes up and talks about my bosses, do you phrase it with negative, feel guilty, say something nice, and a negative, you don't like the boss. If it's positive, he does have a fault, but he is positive. You are subliminally, with a girlfriend, a friend, a boss, a player, you're kind of telling people what you think. Build, break, build. Krzyzewski went break, build, break. Very interesting.
Yeah, so the takeaway is Okafor has a dead tooth.
Yeah, that's the takeaway. He's got a dead tooth. Don't draft him. Michael, you're in the herd. Go ahead.
Hey, Colin. Thank you for taking the call.
Thanks.
So I'm talking about the draft. I think
I think we lost him. That was a bad phone. Go Verizon. I strongly recommend it. It's the other thing. I had an NBA person text me. I got a bunch of NBA people. A lot of times they don't want to be quoted, but a guy said yesterday, it is so rare. What Okafor brings to the table is so rare. A defined offensive game that just needs a little work, Duncan-esque, that you have to take him. And the person I talked to said I would take him over Towns, because I think Towns, you'll see duplication of Towns in the next 5 drafts. You're seeing 6'11" guys who are real athletes all over the country. He goes, but what Okafor brings in, it's just not out there. There are no more Okafors. You can go in high school basketball, AAU. There aren't 6'11" guys who are big hands, good feet, brilliant either hand around the glass, and the ball just glides into the basket. That is a rare, rare skill. Whereas Karl Anthony Towns is terrific, but we're seeing duplication of that. Hey, Mike, is your crappy cell phone fixed?
Hey, Colin, thank you for getting me back in.
Yeah.
I was going to say Krzyzewski's criticism of Okafor are true, and I think it actually benefits Karl Anthony Towns and Okafor in the fact that Towns had to play big in limited minutes in Calipari's system, and Okafor is probably going to drop to 2, end up in L.A., and Kobe Bryant's going to get the most out of that kid, and he's going to become a great NBA player.
Yeah, you got to get over this Kobe's going to get the most out of guys, dude. Kobe and Carmelo don't make anybody better. You got to get past that. It's not true. It's mythology. Kobe doesn't make players better. He ruined Steve Nash. At the end, Steve Nash got reduced to a bench player. You got to get that's what guys say around other guys. Kobe makes people better. Chris Paul makes guys better. You know, there are guys in this league that make players better. Kobe's not one of them.
You're in the Herd, the Thundering Herd podcast.
Geico presents Strange Saving Stories. Astronomers detected an interstellar transmission. It stated, Geico, 15 minutes could save you 15% or more. The implications were staggering. Was the cosmos telling us we could all save hundreds on car insurance with Geico? Or did their radar merely pick up a signal from the nearby Rufus and Clyde's morning show? We may never know.
Geico, 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance.
Colin Cowherd, the Thundering Herd podcast.
I had no idea. Like when you gave a commencement speech, I didn't even know if you got paid. I always thought it was sort of an honor to give a commencement speech. If you're asked, that's an honor. I had no idea they paid people. They pay, like Alan Thicke gets $15,000, Ed Asner gets $30,000, Ben Stein and Dr. Sanjay Gupta can get $30 to $50,000, Bill Maher, Adam Carolla, Howie Long, Jane Pauley can get $50,000 and up. Katie Couric and Jay Leno, Jeff Foxworthy get $100,000 and up for a commencement speech. And Dr. Phil and Jerry Seinfeld get over $200,000. I had no idea. I didn't even know it paid. I always thought if you were asked, you would be honored to talk to young people about that venture into the next world. Did you get paid to give those things? Maybe I should be a little more in tune.
You also get an honorary degree.
Do you?
Yeah.
So you're telling me Fran Drescher could get an honorary degree?
Fran's a psych degree.
That's amazing. That is, I'm looking at it. Is it a degree in commencement speaking? What is the Matthew McConaughey to the University of Houston? Madeleine Albright. Oh, she'd be fascinating. Oh, my God. Madeleine Albright, Tufts University. Katie Couric was at the University of Wisconsin. She'd be funny. Tim Cook, Apple CEO, George Washington University. Wow, I had no idea.
Colin Colbert once got a doctorate in the fine arts from a university and then pretended he was a doctor on his show.
How about book me to speak at the United Trucking College? I will nail it. I'd like at least $1,500 though, and my honorary 18-wheeler, if I could. Brian Windhorst joining us. All right, what surprises me about this series, Houston could be up 2-0. I thought they missed the opportunity last night. How do you think the Rockets feel about it this morning?
Yeah, I'm sure they were sick flying home thinking that they were not at least at 1-1 because both of those games, Golden State came out sluggish in game one. There's 6 o'clock starts out there, Colin. And I don't think they were, I just didn't feel like starting in game one, they quite had the energy at the start. And then the Rockets ended up blowing that lead. Then yesterday, the Warriors are like the best lead holders in the league. And they totally did not execute down the stretch of that game. They had turnovers and bad shots, and they opened the door wide. And Houston was right there, not able to execute. They just have to be sick about it. And I just think it's a reminder how hard it is to beat the Warriors. You have to be in tune on everything. As well as Harden played and as what Dwight Howard gave them, and I think he gave them everything you could have expected after that knee injury.
Yep.
You have to be even better. And it's why the Warriors have been the overwhelming favorite to win the whole thing for a long time now.
Yeah. Brian Windhorst, Cavs-Hawks tonight. I got to tell you, if Kyrie Irving, I made this comment yesterday, Brian, is that you forget in Miami, those 4 finals, Wade and Bosh were rarely healthy simultaneously. Kyrie Irving, from Duke to now, has been hurt constantly. I think part of LeBron's legacy is going to be he could never get his greatest teammates to be physically healthy all the time. I look at Kyrie Irving now. Isn't he kind of shot the rest of the way?
The frustrating thing for Kyrie is that he took the 5 days off between series, and he was really feeling good. He went so far as to say that he was pain-free, and he took a bad step and he had to shut it down again. And I think that's the frustrating thing. I think the frustrating thing for him is that he realizes he's not going to be right again in the playoffs. He'd really hoped that he'd gotten over the hump, and I think it's really remarkable that the Cavs are sitting here up 1 with all that they've had to go through. Now, I have to qualify that by saying it's the Eastern Conference. But, something happened Wednesday night that I feel like I'm the only person in the country that's beating the drum on this stat. I think it's an incredible stat. For the 21st consecutive series, LeBron James' team won a road game. And you're the only person that's ever done anything like that is Jordan. He did it 24 in a row. And as you mentioned, the injuries that Bosh and Wade, and because it's mostly from Miami, but it straddles both times with Cleveland. For him to be able to lead his team, and basically what happened on Wednesday, the Hawks shot 57% in the first half on their home floor when they were still fully healthy, essentially, other than Cephalosha, and they are tied at half. Why are they tied? Because LeBron went to work on them and held the Cavs in position. And that statistic, to win a road game in 21 straight series, says a lot about confidence. It says a lot about handling stress. And I think it's one of the greatest things he's accomplished in his career.
Brian Windhorst, you, Skip Bayless, and I are now in a rare group. We're getting clobbered for our belief that there are work environments and family environments. I thought it was kind of funny. It's not a major controversy, but I do believe there's a place and a time for family and a place and a time for all workers, dentists to journalists. Were you surprised by the reaction, the vitriol, when you merely suggested you'd like a little quiet doing your job?
Well, I guess I should have said it on a different day than when Riley Curry was everywhere, because she's so adorable.
Right.
It's not really about Riley, and it's not about Steph. Steph is actually one of the best stars in dealing with the media.
Yes.
I had actually said it 3 or 4 times, and on that particular day, it happened to hit the news cycle just right. What happens in the playoffs, Colin, is during the entire regular season, all the interviews are conducted in the locker room, and you'd never see any children in a locker room. It is a business setting, especially when media access. What happens in the playoffs is they have to take the interviews for the stars out of the locker room because of the sheer volume of media. And so the players have to leave the locker room and come to some auxiliary setup. And for 9 months during the regular season, when the player leaves the locker room after the game, it is family time. The families are there. They want to go see their dad, their son, their brother, and it becomes family time. And what happens is family time spills on their way into the press conference, and so these guys can't help it. They want to bring their kids up. Most of the time it's after a victory. They're very happy. But the thing about it is, I don't have a problem doing that on All-Star Weekend. I don't have a problem doing it on, I think, take your child to work day falls in the NBA season. I'd be totally cool with it on that day. After you've won the championship, that's a family celebration moment. Usually you're celebrating on the court. I don't have a problem with it. What I was saying is, when you're doing it after game 1 of playoff series, There was a playoff series earlier this season that I covered, Colin, where after game one, the losing team, 2 players brought their children in at the same time. And we need to speak to Dad about how Dad just failed on the court in an important game, and you can't ask that question when their sons and daughters are there. And I mean, I'm not saying it to be mean or because I hate children. I'm saying it because this is a professional setting, and I just think that it's becoming very proliferated. And I know that I was a Grinch because of it, and people hate me, but I'm just speaking as a professional, and it's not really anybody's fault. It's more of a function of the space and the difference between what media does in the regular season and in the playoffs.
And you, by the way, were articulate throughout that discussion, and your critics have not been, and that's why I say you're on the right side. When critics just can insult, they don't have an argument, and that's all the critics have been saying. They insult you, me, Skip Bayless. You articulated thoroughly your position, which is right. It's the right position, and it's good talking to you, buddy.
Well, listen, now where we are nowadays, media is covered by other media-like players, like athletes are. So that's fine. I don't care if anybody criticizes me, but the people who are criticizing it, I sort of feel like they don't work in the setting that we work in. That's all.
You're right, buddy. We're right. Skip Bayless is right for the first time ever. It's good to be on that side, Brian. Thank you.
Okay, have a great weekend, Colin.
It should be noted, blog guys don't even get credentialed to this stuff, so they don't have to worry about it. Blog guys don't get credentialed. The organizations don't want to give most blog guys credentials. Some get it, some local guys get it, but yeah, it's anytime you get an argument, who has the most articulate argument wins the argument, if you're into that kind of thing. The shots fired at Windhorst, or you guys are idiots. No, he's articulate. That's the best you can do. NFL had background checks this year to thin out the media. First guys to go, blog guy, see ya. That's the guy that's outraged by Windhorst, the guy that's not invited in. It's a working environment. Grow up. Doesn't mean I don't like kids. I got 30 of them. Jesus. 24-year-old blog guy with no kids is now an expert on parenting, kids, and the media. All right. Yeah. Try to get. You couldn't get into a mud bog event. Couldn't get credentialed for it.
Want more of the herd? The Thundering Herd Podcast.
My buddy John Ireland, voice of the Lakers, just texted me. He said, here's the counter-argument to Windhorst, who I like a lot. Anybody in TV news, which you and I were both in for years, led with Riley Curry that night, not just in sports, but every news producer teased it 3 times during the newscast. Why is Brian's need to be serious more important than my need as a TV news guy to get something my news director will love? It's a real debate. But I would say, John, the reason you and I are no longer in local news is because it's dreck. And we are not in that business anymore because we got better jobs where you don't lead with cats climbing trees and the local shooting in the bad part of town. Is that what local news leads with is mostly not that important. It's all visual cotton candy and eye candy. And so what Brian's doing is real work. So there's a reason John Ireland's no longer doing local news. He got a better job. And there's a reason I'm not in local news, which I couldn't wait to get out of. You know what I mean? So just because something makes good video doesn't make it right. I mean, local news could lead with some idiot running on the field in the game. Remember a few years ago when somebody in, like, was it Chicago, ran on the field and attacked the Kansas City Royal first base coach? Local news led with that. That doesn't mean we should allow fans to jump on first base coaches. What local news leads with is just what, if it bleeds, it leads. That doesn't make it right. What I've said is, you know, a lot of people it's a work environment. I'm not a crusty old guy. I've got more kids than you do. Trust me. You know, other than Angelina Jolie listening to this show right now, I've got more kids than anybody listening, except for maybe in Salt Lake City. But the whole point is this. I got a lot of kids. I love kids. But there's a time for my kids and a time not for my kids. They don't come into our bedroom at night. That's just a place they're in the house, but doors locked. Things happening. Kicking it with Sandy. Okay? Yeah, I mean, I'm kicking it upstairs, all right? Daddy, Mommy, what is going on? None of your business. Dad's kicking it with Sandy. We having dinner tonight? No. It's called fish sticks. Look in the freezer. Yeah, so, I mean, there's a time and a place for kids. And, oh, it was human. Yes, but it's becoming a cliche. Now it's like every guy's got their kids. He's got 2 kids, multiple kids. It's a workspace. And by the way, I'm not defending the media. I'm defending vets and dentists and school teachers. I'm defending professional workers in their environment. I'm defending all of you, pilots and air traffic controllers and As long as you're on the business premises, I don't like dogs and kids at work. There's a place for adults and a place for kids. That's the only thing. You know, and I do think what happens is when you give players an inch, they take a mile. And by the way, that I do, you do, we all do. Anytime you give me an inch, I take a mile. I mean, that we're all like that. So pretty soon it's 3 kids, it's 4 kids, it's older kids, it's cousins, it's my boo, it's my girl, it's my. That's in 6 years you let it go on, and agents now are all pushing for this. Get your kids up there. It's human. We'll be able to sell it. Now it's becoming a thing, and I'm not really. I don't like things. Like, oh, now it's a thing. Selfies are a thing. No thanks. You know, now bringing your kids up is a thing. Everybody, it's not like organic. It's like now it's not. It's a plan. Everybody's now, hey, I saw my guy doing it. Now let's do it. It looks cool. Now it's a thing in the NBA. And I think, you know, the NBA is like, okay, it's cute, but mark my words, in a year or two, it will. This is what happened with the dress code. Everybody, the NBA just gave everybody carte blanche, do what you want. Then they had to step in and go, okay, it's not working. You guys are wearing aviator glasses, and it's in a lit room. And, you know, it was. And by the way, a lot of people thought, oh, that's racism. But as Michael Wilbon, another black journalist, said, overwhelmingly it's a corporate sport. And you didn't want guys after games do-ragging it and all their stuff and all that. It just didn't look great for a corporate sport. And that's not my opinion. That was the opinion of the commissioners, other stars who were African-American. It became a racial topic, and it wasn't a racial topic. It's a working environment, look like a professional. Want to wear that to the club in an hour? Go for it. Want to hang out with your kids 3 minutes later? Go for it. I'm not negative. It's too simplistic an argument. You're negative, anti-kid. That's a blog guy that doesn't even have a kid. He's lecturing me on parenting and kids. My kids all the time want to do things. I'm like, no, you can't have ice cream for breakfast. You can't go to work with dad. That's just parenting. Just hold off for 5 minutes. Let me get it done. Boom, we're done. And it's so it's not. It's just the media. It's become a cottage industry to rip the media. It's such an easy cliched out. The media is always bad. Well, yet you're listening to the media. So if it's so bad, why are you consuming it? I'm consuming it. You're consuming it. Oh, it's the media complaining. No, it's not. It's a work environment. And by the way, I would support your right as a trucker not to have the other truckers' kids on the CB playing around as you're going down the interstate. Hey, 10-4, good buddy. It's Corey here in my dad's car. Breaker, 19. Breaker, hey! You got 18 wheels. Kids shouldn't be on that. That's for adults. Okay? That's for adults. Jordan, you're in the herd. Go ahead.
Hey, Colin. I just wanted to say, I don't think this is necessarily a problem, but it does make the NBA look kind of more towards of a joke. I mean, if it's more of a business meeting in there, if anything, you know, they're trying to be professional, and if Steph Curry brings his kid up, it's like sitting down with a business meeting with another employer and having that guy sit his kid on his lap and trying to have a conversation with you. It's not right at all.
Hey, by the way, Jordan, you want to know a little trick? If I'm going to get interviewed by somebody who's going to rip me, I'll bring my wife. You won't do that in front of my wife, will you? Yeah. No question. By the way, you're going to rip me? I'm going to bring my kids. You're not going to rip me in front of my kids. It's an easy tactic to use. You miss the final shot, I'll bring my kids up. You wouldn't pick on somebody. You wouldn't pick on daddy in front of the kids now, would you? You know, it's just, again, stop with this simplistic hot take. You're anti-kids. Nobody's anti-kids. God, between John and I and Vince, I think we have 14 of them. We never bring them in this space, even when we're not on the air. It's company property. There'll be a space and time right after the show. I call them right after the show every day.
You're in the herd. The Thundering Herd Podcast. ESPN Radio, bringing you directly to the biggest events in sports.
Center field, well hit, Hunter back, out of here!
From opening day of baseball,
throw to the plate, safe at the plate,
right through the World Series.
For the third time in 5 seasons, the San Francisco Giants are the champions of the baseball world.
Whether it's LeBron, Chris Paul, or Kevin Durant, when the NBA tips off, ESPN Radio is right there. When a champion is crowned.
We have a new world champion. The San Antonio Spurs are the world champions.
And when the magic of bowl season arrives, ESPN Radio is your home for the new college football playoff.
The college football playoff first national champion, the Ohio State Buckeyes.
The biggest events in sports can be found right here on ESPN Radio.
Colin Cowherd.
The Thundering Herd Podcast.
NFL.com on the Twitter account yesterday. Head coaches tell us what it takes to be a great franchise. Now, Stanzik thought this was much more covert and what's the word I'm looking for here? Cryptic. You thought there was a cryptic message in the tweet?
It was very cryptic.
It was. The three things are precision, strength, and intelligence.
What are the first letters there?
PSI. I think you're reaching, but if you go ahead. It's cryptic in your world. It's silliness in mine, but that's fine. But it is interesting that, remember, it's funny, the number one thing coaches say makes a franchise quarterback was precision. Remember what Coach K said about Jahlil Okafor.
He will continue to have to develop an even greater work ethic and being precise.
Very interesting. And by the way, there are certain human qualities I can see and I don't have to know you. It's called thin slicing. You can see an idiot pretty quickly. You can see a guy with bad judgment pretty quickly. You can see inappropriate behavior in a formal setting pretty quickly. All you human resource directors, there's body cues. I mean, hygiene, everything. You can. Precision is one of the qualities that is only created through hard work. Talent does not equal precision. Michael Jordan was not a precise shooter, even in the NBA to start. His precision came through hard work. And that's what I say always worries me about Jay Cutler, Cam Newton, and Matt Stafford. They're not precise. You can watch Tom Brady, Drew Brees, and Peyton Manning. They are precise. That comes from work ethic. Jay Cutler, Matt Stafford, and Cam are just damn talented. They're not overly precise. Meaning that sloppiness is laziness. They just don't put the time in. I don't need to see them practice. I don't need to see you play the guitar. If you're 21 and are great and precise, I know your personality. You're a grinder. You're a professional. You're precise. You're accountable. You are committed. You're not a screw-off. So, I mean, I've said this about the Middle East. I don't need to travel to the Middle East. I see how they treat women. That's all I need to know about the Middle East. I don't need to go there. I'll Google it. You can enjoy 174 degrees of the World Cup. Okay, I don't need to know. All I know, the countries, religious zealotry, bombing each other, how they treat women. That's all I need to know, with few exceptions in the Middle East. So I think it's interesting when you ask coaches, Coach K said it about Okafor, precision. Precision tells you all you need to know. For the record, all you human resource people out there, if you see somebody and they come in for an interview, pocket squares lined up, belt, shoes match, or a slob, doesn't that tell you something? Precision, lack of it? This is fascinating. Fascinating. Charles Pierce writes for Grantland, writes a lot about politics, also wrote a book about the Patriots. He is a longtime sports writer in America, award-winning. Met him a couple times, don't know him, very smart. Look what he picked up on. And he's been covering the Patriots for as long as I can remember. Earlier this week in a hotel bar room in San Francisco, he states, possibly because both, just forget it. It's very funny. It doesn't relate to the story. It's very funny. He's a very good writer. Robert Kraft admitted some vague form of guilt for the purpose of keeping faith with his only true constituency, the dozens of extremely rich humans who own football teams. And I'm going to read you a handful of lines. At the moment, the only person still fighting the NFL sanctions is Tom Brady. For the moment, Kraft has left Brady out on an island, alone, as the only alleged miscreant who hasn't yet atoned for whatever happened in the first half of a 45-7 football game, and is the only person still fighting the NFL over it. The possibility exists that Kraft and the team sold out the franchise's greatest player, and undeniably its greatest asset. for the purpose of getting right with Goodell and the owners. He continues later. At the initial press conference in January, after apparently studying up on the combined gas law in his spare time, Bill Belichick dropped the onus of the alleged shenanigans right onto Brady's lap. In retrospect, that could appear to account for the very odd aspect that Brady presented on the podium later that day. Pretty clear. If there was some strategy being developed by the Patriots at that point, Belichick representing the team and Brady representing himself had different memos. He continues, but clearly beneath all the declarations of outraged solidarity, we've been saying this, agendas have been at a cross purpose, influences in conflict, faith being kept with different constituencies by different people. Brady is being left in the wind to twist. He's 37 and a cheaper option waiting in the wings. One also wonders, Charles Pierce continues, if the team's virtual abandonment of him this week is a muted shot across his bow. This will become an infinitely more interesting question should Jimmy Garoppolo play well in Brady's absence this season. This is precisely true, and it's what we have said. This is exactly, it took Charles Pierce to say it in a more smart, intelligent, clever, thoughtful fashion than I did. On the surface, out to the masses, we did nothing wrong. Below the deck, Kraft, Belichick are supporting the team, not Tom. This is exactly spot on. This is what is happening. Kraft, Belichick, don't buy Tom. But like Goldman Sachs, they're not going to admit guilt, but they'll write a $100 billion check under the table. Brady's on an island. The team circled the wagons. Kraft and Belichick arm in arm. Tom out there. Absolutely nailed it. Good for Charles Pierce.
Want more of the Herd? The Thundering Herd Podcast.
Lakers reportedly will pursue Tom Thibodeau. This is according to Jordan Schultz. He's a basketball reporter. Do we know who Jordan Schultz is? The Lakers would go after Tom Thibodeau, the coach of the Bulls. By the way, for a guy that apparently nobody likes him in Chicago, he's getting a lot of interest. I mean, sometimes there's an old saying, like if you fire somebody, you'll know if you fired the right guy by the next job he gets or the next job she gets. Tom Thibodeau is up for a lot of jobs. If Chicago's going to run him out of town, there are a lot of people that want to hire Tom Thibodeau. It should be noted the Lakers, if they hired him, they would be paying 4 head coaches next year. Byron Scott, Mike Brown, D'Antoni, and Tibbs, which is a total indictment of the Lakers circus right now. Byron Scott, for the record, the people I ask, scouts and coaches and executives around the league, Byron Scott's not an elite coach. He's keeping a bench warm until they get the act figured out. He's not a grinder. He's not schematically elite. Doesn't mean he's a bad coach. Nobody thinks of him as an elite coach in this league. Nobody thinks of him as the guy from Butler, Brad Stevens at Boston, Greg Popovich. I'll tell you this. I think Spoelstra's a really good coach. I think Rick Carlisle is considered outstanding. Steve Kerr's had a terrific first year. But the other story today is we talked about James Harden last night. I'm not going to blame James Harden for the end of that game. It's ridiculous. It was a bad moment and a bad decision to pass to Dwight Howard. He was spectacular. You can't judge a basketball player after they score 38, 10, and 10 in steals and blocks, and they're super efficient because in a crisis situation, he passed to an open guy, and the open guy couldn't do anything with it. James Harden was spectacular last night. He deserves our credit. And he's not my favorite guy, and I'd never make him a franchise guy, and I'm in the minority on that. But last night he was unbelievable, and Houston played very well in the series. The other story today is I just learned today that commencement speakers make millions of dollars. I always wondered why the same guys kept doing it. I thought, wouldn't it get boring? People make hundreds of thousands of dollars a year giving commencement speeches. I'm not joking. Katie Couric over $100,000. Some of these people, Adam Carolla's popular on podcasting, but $50,000 for Adam Carolla? I like him, but Ben Stein? $50,000 for Ben Stein? Wow. And sheesh. Maybe it's time to start pursuing those in some more commercials. Oh my God. Aaron Brockovich makes $40,000. Ed Asner, Patch Adams, D.L. Hewley, Bill Rancic. He's the one with the skinny wife who's on E? Yeah, right? That's the guy? His wife's on E? Yeah. Okay. Michelle Obama, I get.
You're delaying. What would you say at the commencement? Anticipation's killing us.
They're all too long. They're all too long. It's like
but if you're getting paid $100,000, you got to give them something for the bang of the buck.
So I wouldn't be good because mine would last 7 minutes. Because I think if you're doing an act when you're speaking publicly, after about 6-7 minutes, people's eyes glaze over. You ever go see a stand-up comedian for an hour and a half, and you can remember like 2 jokes? But if he told you 2 jokes back to back, you'd remember both of them. The percentages go down on what people remember, so I'd make it very I have 4 basic tenets in life. Number 1, young students, young stallions. First of all, you're all baked right now anyway, so write these down. You'll never remember them. Number 1, outline your life in pencil, not pen. Don't be rigid. Be willing to move. Be mobile. Keep your head up, not down. Life gives you thousands of opportunities. Observe, pay attention, be willing to move, and gamble. Remember what they say, kids. There's a reason people go out on a limb. That's where all the fruit is. Number 2, kids, there's a difference between elitism and standards. Don't be guilted into lowering your standards. I like nice stuff. You can't afford it? That's a you problem. I've worked hard. Buy good stuff, drink good stuff, eat good stuff, live in nice areas. Don't be guilted into that. It's available. Work your arse off. Don't confuse elitism for standards. Have high standards, always. With your kids, with your food, with your drink, with your life, with your travel, and with your friends. Number 3, be inclusive, not exclusive. Be inclusive in life. 30 years from now, you don't want to be the embarrassing dad who is anti-immigration, anti-gays. You don't want to be that guy. Be inclusive in life. Ask more people to the party. That's not a liberal stance. That's a human stance. And finally, number 4, don't do meth. And then I walk off the stage. That would be it.
So what do you think you're worth there? That's $50,000 right there, huh?
I'm not even sure that's worth $150. Matthew McConaughey just spoke at the University of Houston. He made $165,000.
Just saying, all right.
I don't know. I'd add one more. Can you start the music? I'd add one more. Just one more. Kids, I'm sorry. Hold it. Climb back up the stairs. Hey, kids, also, don't pay good money for a Shia LaBeouf movie. It's not worth it. All right, thank you. Tip you later.
Check out The Herd with Colin Cowherd weekdays from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern on ESPN Radio, ESPNradio.com, and on ESPNU. The Thundering Herd Podcast.